All right, all praises be to Yahweh, Bashem Yahweh Shah, Yahweh Kakadash, Yahweh being who people call God, Yahweh Shah being who people call Jesus. Double honors to the apostles over the Great Millstone Church. Salutations as well to the elder bishops on down to the rest of the elders and Akim, also the branches hold forth the true word of life. All right, so I'm coming back with another lesson. And in this lesson, I just want to deal with the saying or the statement of Yahweh Shah when he said, "You do no error, not knowing the uh, the scriptures nor the power of God." All right. So let's just go ahead and get into this. This is Matthew 22 and 29. And I'm going to read this let's read this in the GNT. Well, let's go here first. This is in the KJV. So it says Matthew 22 and 29. Yahweh Shah answered and said unto them, "You do err not knowing the scriptures nor the power of God." So to get understanding of this, let's just start in context with the context of when he said this. So it says it's headed as you can see, discussion in the NLT, discussion about resurrection. And then the KJV is headed as Yahweh Shah answers the Sadducees. And again, in the NLT, it says discussion about resurrection. So this was a discussion about the resurrection. This was Yahweh Shah answering them throughout that dialogue, responding to them, obviously based off the things that were said. So when we come to the 23rd verse, the same day came to him the Sadducees, which say that there is no resurrection, and asked him, all right, saying, "Master, Moses said, if a man die having no children, his brother shall marry his wife and raise up seed unto his brother." Now, obviously, they referencing the law. That goes back to the law. But nonetheless, it says, now there were. So this is how they pretty much presenting that to them as their concern. All right. So that's what they're speaking about. That instance, that particular scripture. All right. So, matter of fact, let's do this. So we just gonna come to the law or where they was getting it from. This is Deuteronomy 25 and 5. It says, "If brethren dwell together and one of them have no child, the wife of the dead shall not marry without unto a stranger. Her husband's brother shall go in unto her and take her to him to wife and perform the duty of a husband's brother unto her." All right, this is in the NLT. If two brothers are living together on the same property and one of them dies without a son, his widow may not be married to anyone from outside the family. Instead, her husband's brother should marry her and have intercourse with her to fulfill the duties of a brother-in-law. It says, we're going to jump to the 6th verse, "And it shall be that the firstborn which she beareth shall succeed in the name of his brother which is dead, that his name be not put out of Israel." All right. So pretty much this is where they're getting this from. Now we're going to go here to Genesis 38 and 8. "And Judah said unto Onan, go unto thy brother's wife and marry her and raise up seed to thy brother." All right, this is in the NLT. "Then Judah," right, the patriarch Judah himself, "said to Er's brother Onan, go and marry Tamar, as our law requires of the brother of a man who has died. All right, if they live together, you must produce an heir for your brother." So, that's pretty much it on that. That's where they're getting that from. So we come back here to Matthew 22 and 23. "The same day came to him the Sadducees, which say there is no resurrection, and asked him, saying, Master, Moses said, if a man die having no children, his brother shall marry his wife and raise up seed unto his brother." So you see how they just conjoin the two? They're trying to get understanding off the resurrection by the knowledge uh, or making sense of that particular law. But they don't. They did it. So that caused them to misunderstand or misinterpret the resurrection, right? Because of that. So when we read on, now he like basically they question the resurrection, and they like basically the resurrection don't make sense because of this, right? Like for example, it says in the law such and such, right? Now when you read the 25th verse, they go on saying, now there were with us 7 brethren, and the first, when he had married a wife, deceased, and having no issue, left his wife unto his brother. See that? Now, this in the NLT. Well, suppose there were 7 brothers, right? The oldest one married and then died without children. So his brother married the widow. In the KJV, next verse. Likewise, the second also, and the third, and the seventh. Right? So they being simple. All right, they like basically all these men keep dying. Like every husband she get, um, will pretty much be Jake's playing out that role, that lot. This brother, dies, but he had a brother that was living with him or whatever, or however, right? To where, or however they mention it, to where he marries her. Then that same thing happens to him. He's fine, and uh, who also will go on and have a brother with him, and then he would die, and then that brother would take over, and it's just a cycle, right? It says, likewise the second, they said, likewise the second also, and the third unto the seventh. All right. This is in the NLT, but the second brother also died, and the third brother married her. This continued with all 7 of them. And last of all, in the KJV, the woman also died. And last of all, the woman died also. So they're using this as a reference or as a case in point to say the resurrection doesn't make sense or is impossible, right? So they said, therefore, in the resurrection, whose wife shall be, see that, of the 7. They're like, it gotta be madness because that would be madness. So the resurrection is madness because all these people gonna come back, right? So who wife you gonna be? So they was using that again as a reference point for their belief or disbelief, right? It says, therefore, in the resurrection, whose wife shall, sarcastically, therefore, in the resurrection, whose wife shall she be of the 7, for they all had her. See that? Thinking they making sense, thinking they smart, thinking they understand, thinking their point is valid. You know, using that to say there is no resurrection because originally she's this man, right? But how's that truly determined? But that's simple. All right. So it says, Yahweh Shah answered and said unto them, this is the point, ye do err, not knowing the scriptures nor the power of God. See that? This in the NLT. So that's pretty much it. All right. That's it. Basically, the point being, because it ain't to break that down or go into the resurrection or that law. The point is, when you don't understand the scriptures, you end up, you can end is you can end up having a warped uh, understanding of other things, to where you're doing uh, things as of inconvenience. All right, so that's why the Lord is telling us you supposed to know the scriptures. You want to have understanding of the scriptures, because when you don't, you can end up having what? A evil suspicion, to where your judgment is overthrown, to where you're not properly assessing things. Let's get that. This is Sirach 3 and 24 in the GNT. Many people have been misled. Many people have been misled by their own opinions. Their wrong ideas have warped their judgment. Now I want to read the same one in the KJV. It says, "For many are deceived by their own vain opinion, and evil suspicion have overthrown their judgment." See that? So I want to use this article to show this. As you see here, it says, "Boy 4 drowns after Amish mother throws him in lake to prove worthiness to God." Now, when you get into this, it's a warped perception, because I'm gonna jump to the point. It says, the mother and her husband, who also drowned, directed their other children, including a 15-year-old girl and twin 18-year-old boys, to participate in similar water-based trials of faith, although they survived. See that? This story from and we're gonna come back to this. So that's what I want to use to get into this, because they done died, these dang heathens, because they don't understand the scriptures. They hear the things about trials, and they're reading things in the scriptures about the trials of faith, and you proving yourself, and being baptized and immersed in the water. You know, probably even Yahushua walking on the water, who they probably call Jesus. And those misunderstandings on those things led them to believe, or led her to believe with the rest of them, that um, this makes sense. This is what God wants you to do. You know, to where they do something completely ill-advised like this. Which is why it says, Luke 8 and 18, Yahushua said, "Take heed, therefore, how ye hear." See that? "For whosoever," let me read this in the NLT. So pay attention to how you hear. To how you hear. See, so pay attention to how you hear. "To those who listen to my teachings, more understanding will be given." Right? Because the scriptures tell you, with all I get understanding. So this is something key, because people, people be thinking they justified in matters that they handle ill-advisedly, incorrectly, because of their use, of scriptures that they probably put with another scripture and they didn't even understand. So where they came up with they believed they were right. They were basically deceived. They got by the devil. You end up doing something wrong. So it says, "To those who listen to my teaching, more understanding will be given." So the Lord gives teachings for understanding to begin with, because he said, to those who listen to my teaching, more understanding will be given. But for those who are not listening, even what they think they understand will be taken away from them, because they probably gonna do something ill-advised, to where they get put, they kill themselves, or they get put to death because they do something that the Lord actually didn't approve of. They do something wicked. You do something wicked. So this is why I'm doing this lesson through the Spirit. But anyway, so when you go to the KJV, it says, he said, "Take heed, therefore, how you hear." That's a commandment. That's a precept. Now, when you go into this, I'm gonna read the whole verse, but I want to get that word here. "For whosoever hath, to him shall be given." See that? So you're gonna be able to profit if you truly what? Hear. But we're gonna get that word here again. "And whosoever have not, to him from him shall be taken even that which he seemeth to have." Right? So you're not gonna profit, off the knowledge you think you acting on or can act on, because you never really had it. You never really had the actual knowledge, because you didn't understand the knowledge you came across, or that you was even using in the first place. So when you get that word here,
Strong's G 191, akuo. Akuo.
You got the word akuo. It says to be endowed with the faculty of hearing, not deaf. Now it says To attend, consider what is or has been said, but this the point. B, to understand, to understand, to understand, perceive the sense of what is says. See that? In the E, right, it says to comprehend, to understand. All right, so it ain't just giving ear as it says in D, right? To give ear to a teaching or a teacher, but to what? In E, to comprehend, to understand. So, because what good would it be if you hearing if you can't understand it? So it says take heed. He said take heed how you hear. So meaning get understanding, right? Pay attention to, you know, your comprehension on it of it. It's serious because you can indeed end up like this dang Amish woman. You know, that goes for us brothers, believers, you know, especially sisters. You do something ill advised, inconvenient because you being simple. All right. And you know you're supposed to, with all that getting, when you know you being basically, because you know you're supposed to, with all that getting, get understanding. Because the scriptures tell you what, be not confident in a plain way. You know, oh, here's the scriptures. Yeah, we're supposed to go through trials and tribulations. Let's get that real quick. All right. My bad. Sirach 32 and 21. Be not confident in a plain way. Be not confident in a plain way. You know, you're going to act upon things of the scriptures. You understand this, like, literally was before you was life or death. You know, the scriptures tell you how to live and how to die, how to not die and how to live. You know what I'm saying? Things that's of life, things that's dealing with things that people don't understand, need to understand, you know, to live or not die, all these things. It's not a Winnie the Pooh book. All right. Bringing this one out, many people in GNT 3 and 24 have been misled by their own opinions. Their wrong ideas have warped their judgment. So that point is, so all I get understanding, you know, and you know, hence you do err not knowing the scriptures nor the power of God. This is Romans 1 and 28. And even as they did not like to retain God, Yahweh Ba'Shem Shah in their knowledge, Yahweh Ba'Shem Shah gave them over to a reprobate mind to do those things which are not convenient. Now I'm going to jump up here to verse in the 21st verse. Yes, they knew God, but they wouldn't worship him as God. They knew this is not a game. These are things you are to understand. The prophets only, you know what I'm saying? This book heavy is serious. You know what I'm saying? It's a lot of things playing, but that's how these heathen are. But you got jakes that could be like that too, and you can be in a time and place when you being like a heathen because you being confident in a plain way. Because to be a heathen is to basically be without God, to where you like a beast. You know. But anyway, it says, and God's Yahweh Ba'Shem Shah. It says, but they wouldn't worship him even as God or even give him thanks. And they began to think up of foolish ideas of what God was like. As a result, their minds became dark and confused. Claiming to be wise, they instead became utter fools. All right. So when you jump down to verse 28 in the NLT, since they thought it foolish to acknowledge God, he abandoned them to their foolish thinking and let them do things that should never be done. Read this, Sirach 3:32 and 4 in the GNT. Study his law, and you will master it, unless you are insincere about it, in which case you will fail. If you fear Yahweh Ba'Shem Shah, you will know what is right, and you will be famous for your fairness. See that? It says sinners have no use for correction and will interpret the law to suit themselves. All right. So the law corrects you. It tell you how to move and not being confident in a plain way. Like that's just gonna go on and say. But you got those that don't take that serious, you know, but think they, you know, it's like think you gonna go into the middle, you know, of the ocean. You see what I'm saying? Being something and like, or you think you gonna just fast for 40 days and 40 nights? or you gonna go live the same life your house shall live. Because the scriptures tell you to bear your cross and follow him daily. He ain't. Then someone go get a literal cross. Scriptures tell you to pluck out that eye if it offending, and you go get a knife and gouge your eye out. You know. Now we understand us as believers. Like yeah, we ain't gonna do no shit like that. But we got things to where you know you could be hasty. You know, and giving credit to where you bring out something incorrectly. You know what I'm saying? Or you justify uh, yourself to be cool with doing it. Or it don't really matter because, you know what I'm saying, we ain't under the law. Shit like that, so forth and so on. It says sinners will have no use for correction and will interpret the law to suit themselves. Sensible people will consider every opinion, right? So you let every matter be established by 2 or 3 witnesses. Really getting an understanding. It says, but arrogant people will let nothing stand in their way. And that was that woman. Neither do anything without thinking it through. And once you have done something, don't look back and wish you had done something else. Right? And that will only be if you ain't thoroughly go through everything. You know what I'm saying? It says, don't take a course of action that is dangerous. You're not supposed to do that. And don't make the same mistake twice. Don't be too sure of yourself, even when the way looks easy. Because, there are many ways that are right in the eyes of men, but the end thereof are the ways of death. Roughly paraphrasing Proverbs. Always watch where you are going, even in the scriptures and using the scriptures and giving scriptures to people. You know what I'm saying? And where you're at, even in standing with God trying to do that. That woman was out of line. Whatever you do, be careful. This is keeping the Lord's commandments. See, whatever you do, be careful. This is keeping the Lord's commands. And it goes same thing that goes with with the scriptures. So the key here is 20, don't take a course of action that is dangerous. And don't make the same mistake twice. So when the Lord tells us to pluck out our eye, and endure all things for the elect's sake. You know what I'm saying? That don't mean go get on a boat like Paul did. Go find a damn serpent and let it bite you. You know what I'm saying? Um, go be someone else. Try to be all the lots to where you're just an overbearing, over righteous, damn out of order person. You can't be confident in a plain way. You can go off using the scriptures. You know, study yourself to death, so forth and so on. You know, making no distinguishing between anything because we're all brothers. No one can say they have no need of the next. So now ain't no order. So are you like, man, yeah, nigga, shit, you ain't shit, nigga. The elders and all this madness, you know, that's off. You know, so when you come back here, this is a tragic event occurred in South Bend, Indiana, where a 4-year-old boy drowned after his Amish mother allegedly threw him into a lake to test his worthiness, quote unquote, worthiness to God. The mother and her husband who also drowned, directed their other children, including a 15-year-old girl and twin 18-year-old boys, to participate in similar water-based trials of faith, quote unquote, right? Although they survived, meaning the twins. It says this story from M Live highlights concerning practices surrounding faith and family dynamics within the Amish community, and they end up throwing out like they say, the baby with the bathwater. You don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. You throw the damn bathwater out. The waters is what's off. The understanding of these scriptures is not the things that's concerning the faith of the Hebrew Israelites, of Yahweh Shem Yahushua, who people call God and Jesus Christ, but it's people's um, own flesh that's against it, or people's lives that are in opposition to it, to where it's an issue. And ultimately, what their misunderstanding of it. They're not anti-submitting to it or not submitting to it properly. You know, accurately going about it and using it rightly, like the scriptures say, divide the word rightly. All these different things. So yeah, man, this happened September. This was updated, but this happened September 2nd, 2025, 11:45 a.m. This was updated then. So yeah, members of a dive team on Atwood Lake floated over the spot where they recovered the body of Marcus Miller on August 24th. Okay, so all it actually happened August 24th, and it was updated as of then, September 2nd. All right, a day after Miller's wife allegedly killed their 4-year-old son by throwing him into the lake. See that? Like she damn Yahweh Sean Peter is, you know what I'm saying? You're not supposed to be over righteous. An Amish mother has been charged with murder after her 4-year-old son drowned in an Ohio lake. Ruth, that's so spiritual, R. Miller, 40 of Millersburg, Ohio, told the Tuskegee County Sheriff's Office that she believed she was acting at the direction of God when she allegedly threw her young son in Atwood Lake on August 30th. No, it's just people's misunderstanding of it. It's not, this is a cult. It's something wrong with the scriptures, a man-made book. It's men playing with God, Yahweh Bashim Shah's book, misunderstanding Yahweh Bashim Yahweh's book. It ain't the wisdom don't work. You use it out of season. You use something he didn't even tell you. You thought that's what he said because you misunderstood what you read. You know, you misinterpreted the words he wrote unto you. See that? So the woman's husband, Marcus J. Miller, 45, had also apparently drowned while attempting to swim to a sandbank in another test of faith, officials said. While their other children, a 15-year-old girl and 18-year-old boys, were also directed to perform water-based trials of faith. Right? But survive. The Lord gonna give you your trials. You don't go create trials for yourself. What the scriptures say, prove thy soul. And get, in thy own life. If we will judge ourselves, we shall not be judged. When the world, we shall not be condemned with the world when it is judged. Roughly paraphrasing. But survived. The teens are now in custody of other relatives, officials said. So in here it says the Tuskegee County Sheriff Orvis Campbell said Ruth Miller experienced a quote-unquote spiritual delusion. See that? And that she spoke about placing her son in the water to give him to God. It's crazy, man. She and her husband went to this dock and they jumped in the water because God was speaking to them and telling them, no, it's their own vain opinion. It's crazy. Warped it toward their judgment warped. They think it's God talking to them, but it's their own, misinterpretation of that scriptures. The scriptures they probably read concerning things like this, or using topics like this. But anyway, and telling them to do things to prove their worthiness to God, which the scriptures does tell you to do. But why it wouldn't be that? Because it don't link with the other ones. So that's why I brought that out. You know what I'm saying? People use it's all there. People use one thing to approve or disapprove of another thing. They use one thing meaning they use a scripture they don't understand and put that with another scripture to where they believe, just like John 3:16, they're doing right by telling people God love everybody. They're doing right when they come up against the prophets of the Lord who are the actual Israelites. So now they marked and then they get put to death. They're doing right when they go get buildings and 501c3s, you know what I'm saying, and use their talents, to make merchandise of the Lord, ministry. That stuff off. So you really got to get understanding of the scriptures. So with that, I'm going to say, call Halam La Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, Wahara Kakodas, Lord, when you learn something. Till next time, Shalom.